There's no other you out there. I mean, I think the essence of it is that you're you and it's never too early or too late to be you.
I'm Amy Jo Martin. Welcome to the Why Not Now show. You know that thing you've been thinking about doing? Yeah, that one. Why not now? Have you ever actually taken the time to ask yourself, what's stopping me? Let's talk it through. This is your chance to give that idea the attention it deserves and take action. Each episode, I have a chat with a fascinating person, from entrepreneurs to athletes, celebrities, my parents, rocket scientists, and all walks of life. We talk through a critical time when they've asked themselves, why not now? We dissect that day or even that moment, step by step.
Just let go.
We have a minivan driving mom who's a doctor who went viral on TikTok as the guest on the show today. Dr. Meredith Provost is on the show, and Meredith reached out to me earlier this year, and she said, I'm ready to show up. I'm ready to start sharing my voice online and what's important to me through social media. And I said, are you sure you're ready to really show up? Because not all doctors are. And be real and show more of yourself in terms of just being human, other aspects of your life. And she said, yes, I am. And she was committed. Fast forward, she does. She has millions and millions of views on TikTok. Now, that wasn't the goal, and she didn't even know exactly what her goal was. And I think that's why this is such a relevant conversation, is because so many people come to me and they say, I'm ready to show up. I want to make an impact. I want to share what's important, share value. And I don't know exactly what my specific, tangible, measurable goal looks like yet. And that's okay, because with action comes clarity, especially as you're building your personal brand online. And that's exactly what happened with Meredith. She got started and the path started to take shape for her. So oftentimes this is a very non-linear process. And for those of us who love a plan and strategy mapped out step by step with measurable goals along the way, this can feel very uncomfortable. And it can even at times feel like you might be wasting your time. But if you do get started and you stick with it and you are unapologetically true to yourself while adding a lot of value, it's amazing what doors open up. Now, this episode and conversation is not about going viral on TikTok, although that's a really interesting thing that happened as part of the story. Dr. Meredith lacks zero motivation. Not only is she an MD, but she has her PhD. She's also a renegade. She was the only woman on the men's boxing team at Cambridge. And when Meredith sets her mind to do something, she's going to do it. One of the things she set her mind to do was humanize herself as a physician more. So when we think of doctors, we think of white coats. We think of professionals that in some cases are saving our lives. We don't think of them as moms and athletes and content creators. And when they go swimming, they wear swimsuits too. They may have a beer on the weekend. We kind of forget that they're humans too. And one of the things that Meredith talks about wanting to do with social communication is show that she cares and show that she's human. Meredith is at the top of her field. She is a fertility doctor, and she's also a renegade student of mine. What I love about this case study, and Meredith will share her step-by-step, again, she had zero social media presence at the beginning of this year. The fact that she has nothing to specifically sell online doesn't mean she can't be successful in creating connections that convert. So her conversion may look a little different. And I can tell you having a presence and showing up has really opened doors for her. It's also established her even further as a thought leader in her field and allowed her to connect with colleagues that she likely wouldn't have connected with otherwise. It is not uncommon for me to see people who aren't exactly sure and clear what their path looks like in terms of building their personal brand and what they want to do yet. They may just not know yet. But what happens is when they get started, the path does start to appear. So trusting the process, knowing that this is nonlinear, and knowing that with action comes clarity is such a key component. Now, my conversation with Dr. Meredith is wide-ranging, and we do actually talk about the specific message that she was sharing that sparked that kind of frenzy on TikTok. And I think you'll find it really interesting. It wasn't Meredith just trying to entertain. She was really trying to get a message across, and she uses edutainment, right? Entertainment and education at the same time. And she's so good at it. If you are on TikTok and you want to take a look, check out Meredith Provost MD and send her a DM. Tell her you heard about her on the Why Not Now podcast. Without further ado, here is Dr. Meredith Provost, aka a minivan driving mom who's an athlete, a wife, and many other things. How we spend our days is how we spend our lives. For me, being able to design my own day is a non-negotiable. As many of you know, I'm a bit of a time management nerd. So when I find something that allows me to be more efficient and more effective, I want to share it with everyone. So here's the scoop. I have a new tool in my productivity tool belt, and I'm a bit obsessed. It's Monday.com. My team and I have never felt more organized, and I have a new sense of perceived control. My to-do list is no longer the boss of me. I feel more in control because every project, initiative, date, and task is captured and organized in one place. And my team is in the loop and involved every step of the way. With Monday.com, it's like I have a brand new operating system. There's no long list, and everything has its own home, its own deadline, its own team member that's assigned and associated, and it's color coordinated. We all have multifaceted jobs and businesses. There are many components to my business, and each and every one of them has its own compartment. Each division is always one click away. For example, my team and I have a dedicated board for this very podcast. Did you know there are 28 steps involved in getting one podcast to air? It's the same exact process every time. And it's a system. We have the various key steps mapped out as micro tasks. And this allows for my team and I to stay in lockstep every step of the way. With Monday.com, I can zoom out and see the big picture, a roadmap view from 30,000 feet. And a moment later, I can zoom in and focus on a specific micro task within a project, within a division of the company. I could go on and on about the features that Monday.com offers, one of which is I've built my social media content calendar inside of Monday.com. I finally have one that I actually use, that I like, and it's embedded into my overall Google Calendar. Another feature that I love is the Google Doc integration. You know I love a good spreadsheet. I can pull them into Monday.com and edit them right there versus having 97 tabs open on my computer. If how we spend our days is how we spend our lives, then I can't think of anything more important than using the time in our days wisely. Head to Monday.com if you want a free trial. And let me know on social media how it goes for you. Shoot me a DM. We can swap tips and tricks. Welcome to the show, Meredith. Dr. Meredith, I should say. I am so grateful to have you here, and I can't wait to hop in. I have so many different areas to explore, but in the spirit of why not now, can you tell me about a time, Meredith, when you had a big decision to make and you had to ask yourself, why not now?
Yeah, there's so many, but the one that comes to mind, I was in grad school. I was doing my PhD at Cambridge. Kind of to back up from that, I'd been accepted to med school straight out of undergrad, and I had deferred it to do my master's, and then I let go of my med school acceptance to stay and do my PhD at Cambridge. And I was studying and doing all my work, and at some point, I had applied to do management consulting jobs. I was going to go work in London. I interviewed with a number, probably like the top 3 management consulting firms. It was like a 3 or 4 round interview process. And I had a job lined up with Bain in London. And I was given a sizable bonus. I think it was on the order of like 30 grand. It was more money than I'd ever seen at the age of 25 in my entire life. And I can remember going home for the summer and thinking, it was one of those moments. I've always been really, achievement driven. I've always I saw something I wanted to get at. So I had this moment. I was like, do I really want to be a management consultant? Do I really want to work in that and do that job? And I started thinking about medical school again, which had been my initial intent after undergrad. And knew that for medicine, I was looking at like 10 years until I was actually making money again. And I decided to go to medical school, and I had to hand back my signing bonus and walk away.
Had you already kind of got,
job.
You really had.
It was in my bank account. I hadn't spent it.
Just had to take a deep breath.
Yeah.
I can't imagine at that age.
I was so poor.
Salary less than
I was so broke. I hadn't spent a dime of it because I didn't, really know what to do with that money. But yeah, I had to give it back and make the call and say thank you so much for, interviewing me and for giving me that position. But for me, it was a job, and it would have been a great job, and I would have really enjoyed it, but it wasn't my passion. And it was kind of in that moment that I realized that taking care of people, that working with women was my life passion. And I walked away and applied to med school again and got into med school again. And fast forward, it was 11 years later till I got my next real adult paycheck.
11 years.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay, there's so much to unpack just in that why not now moment of being at that age and literally having the vision and the self-awareness to say, hey, I don't quite think this is my route, after you have all these carrots in front of you in the form of dollar bills in your bank account already. And then what? So you knew enough to know that wasn't it, and knowing you, Meredith, you take action pretty quickly, but you're extremely methodical in my experience. You like strategy, and you like to map out each step, it seems, and see where you're going. So clearly you had done that with medical school, and kind of fast forward, you took that turn. Were there moments where you were kind of oh gosh, maybe I shouldn't have. Oh gosh, maybe I shouldn't have? Or because you had this big moment.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was really hard for me when I was an undergrad, it was really hard for me to make the decision to go into medical school. I call myself a reluctant physician because I was in university, we had first year majors that are undecided. You're not in a particular college of sciences or whatever. I was in the first year of college for 3 years. Finally, as a junior in college, they told me I needed to pick a major because I would just take the hardest of every class that could keep every single option open for me. So I had decided on med school and kind of gotten accepted kind of in my senior year. And I think I just thought it was a rush. Again, I'd gotten in, but did I really want to do this? And I kind of ran from it. I ended up going to Cambridge and doing a PhD in history. It was in the history of medicine, but it was in the history. And then I was I'll go into business. I'll do that. So it was I tried to do everything but what my heart was calling me to do in doing everything else. And then, so I think once I made that decision, I was pretty resolute that it was right. Plus, I mean, at that point, I'd done so many other different paths. So where else was I going to go? But no, I think I really felt going through medical school as a little bit more of a mature medical student that I had the benefit over a lot of my colleagues in medical school when they started questioning whether this really hard path was right for them. I was like, no, I've been those other places and this is where I want to be.
Amazing. And I'm going to bookmark that for a minute or two later, because to know that internal compass and to be able to follow that GPS at that age, even if it was like, nope, this isn't it. Oh, this isn't it. And be tempted by being incentivized by financial things. That's different. That's not usual, right? So we're going to bookmark that for a second. But so you got your PhD and then you went to medical school. Who does that? You do. And you're just ticking boxes and collecting these certificates. And P.S., you had been an athlete in college, right? So therein lies, I think, a really interesting fact in this story. How much do you credit sports to your journey and what you decided to do?
I mean, I think sports shaped my childhood. I grew up in a little bit of an earlier athletic generation where we were still playing lots of sports. We weren't specializing as much as the kids are now, but I was a 3-sport athlete in high school and played volleyball in college on a scholarship. And then in grad school, I played basketball, did some other stuff too.
What does that mean? I don't even know what that means.
I was on the boxing team at Cambridge. I don't know if you knew that.
I'm glad I asked because I had no idea. No, I didn't know you were going to go into management consultant either, by the way, which cracks me up a little bit. But you totally could have, but I can't imagine you. And then the boxing team.
Mm-hmm. I was the second female to box for a university in the UK, I think is what.
What? How did this not come up when we were like talking about this is amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So here we're basically, this is a big expose right now. Okay. So these why not now moments, clearly it's in your blood because you have this track record, the sports and the
yeah, I think that the sports just, I don't know. I've read Angela Duckworth's book Grit, and it builds grit. You build so much idea of it. It really formulated my whole philosophy of just, you have to learn to love to train and to practice and to work hard, because the games are like the icing on the cake, but your real life is all of the work that you do in the meantime. So I think it shaped that. I mean, I think you never know whether you become competitive because you're an athlete or you're an athlete because you're competitive. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question, but I like to compete. But I think sometimes that's good. Sometimes not so good.
I remember you bringing up the book and just Angela Duckworth in our Renegade Brand boot camp. And I then immediately I was like, I just want to dive in more and listened to her book. And it's such a good point of grit over intelligence or IQ or whatever, insert here, whatever external like label we put on things. And so that grit took you through medical school. And please share what you do now and just a little bit about that journey, because what's happened recently is a whole new world you've opened yourself up to that is opening doors, and you're not even sure which ones you want to go through, or if it's fascinating with building your personal brand. And I think for people listening, like, you never know what conversion looks like for you, and we'll get there. But like this grit thing is pretty legit.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a fertility doctor. So I did what technically the name is reproductive endocrinologist and infertility specialist, but that's a mouthful. So we just say fertility doctor. So I help women and men get pregnant and do in vitro fertilization, IVF, and all kinds of stuff to help that. I do also just deal with like other reproductive disorders. So that's my day job. I've in private practice, full-time physician, but have started being on social media here in the last year. I think it
from
really
scratch, right?
From scratch. Yeah. I mean, I had like, a Facebook page from the beginning with all my friends.
We're talking like February or March, probably.
Yeah. February 17th, I think was my first post.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I didn't know COVID was coming. I had no idea. This was like, I was like, I'm just going to start posting on Instagram and in like a personal professional page. And little did I know what the world was heading into just a few short weeks later. But yeah, I think I just felt a need. I was dealing, in my practice every day, I am dealing with women and men, but primarily women. A lot of them high achieving women who have for career reasons been putting off childbirth, or for social reasons had to put off childbirth. And there's just a lot of miseducation, I think, as teenagers and stuff. We were always taught to avoid pregnancy and can look at someone and things can happen. But the reality is different. And I think I just have really felt like there was a need for education, and also for humanizing physicians. I think as physicians, we have a bit of a PR problem. And it was hurtful having been down the road that I've been down, and the number of years that we train to do what we do. Mainly, I handed away $30,000 because I felt like my passion was to help people. And then at the end of it, you'll see on social media that we're just doing it for money or all these things. And I'm just like, why would I have given away 11 years of my life for that? No. And so I think that there's a need for because in my daily life, I'm filled with physicians out there calling each other, upset, crying because bad outcomes are happening. How can we support our patients? Just torn up about things that are happening. And I think there's a part of me that just wanted to let people know how much we care. And I think there's kind of a need. The traditional view had always been, physicians like, don't be on social media, don't be out there. But I kind of think if they see us and we meet them with who we are, then that might change things too.
I so appreciate you sharing that, having spent so much time firsthand with Lincoln, 90 days in a NICU, and getting close, understanding the doctors and nurses, and how outside of the hospital, you have this perception of what you do and how smart you are and how intimidating it can be to talk to doctors at times because they just know so much. And then you get to know them after spending that amount of time. And when you said humanizing physicians, oh, it's so true. You're a person, right? You're a mom. You love sports. You have other interests, and you deliver dreams, pretty much literally,
And we're patients too. We see doctors too. I mean, we've been
you just did, right?
Yeah.
So this is a big deal. And the first thing that popped to mind was that article. Was it one article a few months ago, maybe longer, where was it about female physicians in social media? Can you shed some light on that? Because I'm trying to remember how it sparked. But I think the genesis, how it sparked, isn't even as important as what happened after, like the awareness.
Yeah. Correct me, I've got to get the details right on this one, but it was an article that was published in a scientific journal, the Journal of Vascular Surgery, and it was looking at inappropriate postings on social media, and kind of the prevalence of that among physicians on social media. It was kind of, this was a peer-reviewed journal, meaning it went through a whole advisory board that looked at the science behind it. Mm-hmm. The main issue that a lot of us had with the article was that the criteria for what was inappropriate had some fairly significant gender bias. For example, wearing a bikini was considered inappropriate, but not a guy wearing swim trunks. And, alcohol at a party was considered inappropriate. So it was kind of the metrics on which some of this inappropriateness was judged that was the main issue that female physicians, myself included, were pretty offended by. And so we kind of took to social media, posting somewhat questionable and inappropriate pictures of ourselves. Like, this is who we are. But I think part of it was like, we're people. Like, we have a beer on the weekends, just like you do. We wear swimsuits when we swim.
Because that's what you wear.
Yeah. And I think that was part of it. It's just, I don't think it's a bad thing for our patients to realize that we are also real people too. In my mind, it's a little bit going back to like when your doctor was the neighborhood physician that came to your house, like everybody knew that was Dr. So-and-so who lives down the street. And these days we've really gotten separated from that. So I think social media is a great place to meet our patients and meet our communities where they are, right? I mean, you go to them. So that's what we're doing.
We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. All right, everyone, I've got an announcement. As of today, we are officially enrolling for the 2021 Renegade Accelerator Program, formerly called the Renegade Brand Bootcamp. Okay, so who is this program for? What is it? The Renegade Accelerator is for driven female leaders, executives, and entrepreneurs ready to massively increase their impact and income. The program is for like-minded, like-hearted women all over the globe. The experience is intimate, live, real-time, virtual, and it's led by me. Our curriculum is equal parts education, practical education, collaboration, and accountability. In the accelerator, you'll learn directly from me, and I share everything I've learned over the past 20 years in business. We meet in real time to learn, discuss, and grow together. This is high touch. I'll teach you a variety of things, from personal branding to the business side of public speaking, podcasting, publishing, marketing partnerships, how to productize your intellectual property, and we even talk about investing. I teach you all about the different types of investing in order to build your personal wealth. You will also learn the renegade mentality, which is a key ingredient in your success to generate real results. This program is the career love of my life because I get to curate a mosaic of driven, like-minded, like-hearted women who come together to lift each other and themselves up to the next level. After the Renegade Accelerator, you become a member of my top-level alumni community. This group of unmatched women who are making a positive impact is personally curated by me. The relationship building and networking opportunities are endless, and this collective of real, valuable connections will be something that you have forever. If you're at the point where you are ready to take action and accelerate, head to renegadeaccelerator.com. You can sign up for more information where I will guide you in determining if the program and the timing is right for you. If not you, then who? And if not now, then when? Why not now? Head to renegadeaccelerator.com. It shouldn't be innovative, but it is so innovative right now, right? Like we shouldn't need that, but it is needed. And we're in a time and place where it makes a difference when you show up as you do with your community and your colleagues to correct the old incorrect norms. And so I'm grateful that this space is here and that you're willing to step up to that plate. I think, especially in your area of expertise and your vertical, it's a highly emotional situation patients are in, the men and women that come to you for help. And so if you aren't human, like how can you provide a connection in order for them to just listen to you and your expertise? I mean, I can't imagine, the things you hear and the situations you're in and how there are, of course, there's a lot of dynamics in those situations where a lot of times you probably feel like a therapist almost. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, the last thing I need to be is scary to patients, right? Like the last thing I need to be is scary and intimidating. Like we're talking about real personal stuff. It's a privilege for me to be part of those conversations and talking to people about those things. They're bringing me in to talk about things that they probably don't talk to anybody else about.
Right. Yeah.
And so I think there's a lot of empathy needed. There's a lot of understanding needed. And I think that's the hard part. I was just, my whole world was surrounded with these amazing colleagues of mine who just cared so much and do care so much. And I think there's part of me that just wants to kind of just shout it. Like we care, like we really care. That's why we're doing this.
And it's kind of cool because social communication is a tool to be able to show and share that in a semi-scalable way, efficiently and being real. So let's rewind to February 17th. And I don't remember the date of our first conversation, Meredith, but I'll never forget the conversation where, having worked with a lot of different people who are very busy, and I was like, are you really willing to show up? Because show up in like a human way, because otherwise you're going to get frustrated and you're going to quit because you've got a lot of important things to do and this will not be one of them. And you said, absolutely. And I was like, all right, game on. And holy shit, did you show up? Like, let's talk about it. First of all, when you made that commitment to yourself, you just knew you had a purpose behind it, but there was no specific metric or goal, right? Like you were just like,
no, and I still don't really, I think what I'm just saying is my goal. Partly the reason I was ready is that I thought about it for a long time. It wasn't like I was like, hey, I'd been listening to your podcast. I'd been thinking about it. And I knew that to show up, I needed to be me. And I needed to be vulnerable. And so I thought about that a lot because I was scared. To be honest, I was kind of terrified of putting myself out there. And so I think I had kind of done that thought process already. And I was either I'm all in or I'm not. So yeah, I was all in.
You were all in. And what's cool is that I think sometimes when we put ourselves out there, we start figuring out the path more than we know exactly where we're going to go. And then it's X, Y, Z. It's, as I say, it can be a fairly nonlinear experience. That being said, so you start showing up, you start experimenting and bringing your kids into the experiment too, right? Like fully just figuring it out.
Oh, that one was scary for me because I am working with a patient population that is struggling to have children, and children can be very triggering for my patients. And so I thought probably about a year about whether I could post pictures of me with my kids on social media.
Interesting.
All the time. And I finally decided I needed to be me. I needed to be my life, and they're part of my life. And I think the fact that I have children is part of the reason I want other people to have them. I know why people want children. I try to be respectful of that and my patients when I'm posting, but I think it's important. If you're going to show up, you have to be you.
100%. And you did. You full court press. You stuck with it. You're consistent. And within months, I remember you posting in our community Slack channel, like, just kind of went viral on TikTok. What do I do now? Right. And everybody was just on it like, oh my gosh. Can you share a little bit about kind of having that exposure and post, and just what a surprise, what caused it? And let's just chat a bit about it, because it's still such a cool case study of what resonates with people and sticking to we go back to the beginning, back to your beginning days where you were like, I'm going to stick to what I find purpose in. So you start posting, you're playing around, and you're consistent.
Yeah, I liked your concept of playing. I think in the beginning, I didn't know exactly what to post or what people wanted. I don't know what people want to know about me, but I just was kind of playing with what people seem to resonate with. And, in our sessions, we talked a lot about kind of what our purpose statements, what our mission statement is, what are we wanting to do? And what's ironic is it was that post that went viral. It was an introduction, a post about me. Like, hi, I'm Meredith. I'm a doctor and a D1 athlete and a mom of 2, and I'm here to help women realize their dreams or something like that. It was basically like, hi, here I am. Here's who I am. And I was dancing, of course, because it's TikTok. But it was so ironic because here I was just being like, hey, this is me, and this is what I'm about, and this is what I care about, which is just everything that you always talk about, Amy Jo. And that went viral to the tune of like 3.8 million views on TikTok, I think. So.
All right. Time out here. 3.8 million views from literally just introducing yourself and sharing that you're multifaceted, right? That you have various components in a 360, very human way. How mind blown were you that was so newsworthy? I know you were kind of like, whoa, I didn't realize this was such a big deal. Clearly I've hit a nerve. Like, whoa.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a little crazy, but it was interesting. And I think what surprised me, and this is, I kind of wrote about this a little bit more, but what surprised me was my response, because I had always thought going into social media that I was talking to my patient population, tend to be women in their 30s, going through fertility issues. But on TikTok, it's a different scene over there, especially in early February, March. I think a lot of us, people have jumped over there since then. But in early February, March, whenever this was, it's a younger population. And I started getting DMs through Instagram from a lot of teenagers who were saying, hey, I didn't even realize you could do that. People have told me I can't. People have told me I can't be a mom and a doctor. People have told me, and these were like 14, 15-year-old girls. There was absolutely no reason anybody should have been telling them that. Mm-hmm. And so I think just by like coming out there and meeting people with who I am and what I care about, it resonated with a younger generation of girls who are somewhere getting this message that they can't do it. And that just broke my heart. But also was kind of inspiring, and kind of that maybe I'm doing the right thing.
Which is kind of amazing. Talk about, in a way, lightning in a bottle, because you knew you wanted to, start exploring and injecting more purpose into this world of social, and you're experimenting. And then what I love is that, in a way, it was a form of research, like kind of reverse engineering. You learned what was important through a feedback loop that you tripped upon. And that then informed potentially another new route or step, or just even message that you didn't know needed to be heard. It just gives me goosebumps because, I think about the whole people told them they couldn't. People are saying you can't do that to these young girls, and young boys probably too, but young girls. And I'll never forget being in my freshman year in high school, and my like literature teacher saying, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, oh, a doctor. And he's like, yeah, you might want to kind of rethink that. And he was trying to be nice. And I thought, oh, he's trying to help me, something more attainable. And it was actually honors English. And I had been in like special English in third grade because I was having a hard time reading and writing. Little did he know, I went on to write a New York Times bestseller. So that is amazing to me that we're still here. And it's so important to, like, TikTok has told you it's important. Millions of people have told you that's important. So the value in just having that response is it's invaluable. I just love it. So now what? So then you continue. Let's talk about the minivan one, where you're walking out of your private practice, or I don't know, you're probably like leaving surgery, and like these are just so smart and creative. But please share a couple of your like most viral TikTok.
So yeah, I did one where I was, you're walking out of my office like a total doctor mom, doctor boss or something like that, and then you remember that you drive a minivan. So I'm like. Bag over my sunglasses on, and then suddenly it like pans to my my Honda Odyssey with 200,000 miles on it. Because that's real life. I mean, isn't that so true? Whether you're a mom or whether, you just have those moments where you're like, I've got this. And then you just remember.
Well, and there's always another angle that not everybody sees on social. So I think that that's what resonates so much, is because most people don't ever see the minivan. It stops, you hit cut, or you say cut when you take the sunglasses off and you've got your scrubs and you let your hair out of your ponytail. And then that's it. But pan around and you've got a minivan too.
Yeah, I mean, swagger wagon. But, same thing.
Love that.
But that's, I just, that's real life. I mean, us doctors, we weren't always the cool kids. We still aren't,
Yeah. And you're kind of shedding a light, and who would have thought this is where you would be? We're in October now. And so many people say I'm too late to start a presence on social. And I should have started years ago when I first thought of it or when it became popular. And I always think of how you've shown up exactly when you're ready, and you've been extremely impactful in doing that recently, more so than people who have been at it for 15 years. So what would you say? I know you keep kind of going back to this is real. Are there any other things you would say to someone who feels like they missed the boat?
There's always new boats. There's new destinations. I mean, TikTok didn't exist 3 years ago. I mean, I was a fairly early adapter on TikTok. So, while Instagram has been around forever, there's always something different, and there's no other you out there. I mean, I think the essence of it is that you're you, and it's never too early or too late to be you. I mean, I'm 40 years old, but I sometimes think, I'm a little older for Instagram, but I also think that people on Instagram sometimes need that perspective, like I think everybody needs a different perspective, and you just have to be you. I think having been through like 36 years of school, you still feel young when you graduate. It keeps you young a little bit, but I think I was just starting a career at 36. So feeling like I was still new with all of this in a way, even though my age might suggest otherwise.
Yes. So, well, I'm 41, so we're not going to suggest that I think that we're just now hitting our, like, I don't know, I feel like I'm just now hitting my stride. I'm like, yes, who knew? This is amazing.
I think you finally stopped caring as much about what people think,
And that's exactly it, Dr. Meredith. When we let go of what we think everybody else wants us to be is when we arrive. And that builds connection in a way we never imagined possible. But it's amazing how much undoing and the conditioning that sometimes it takes, or just years of realizing, you know what, I can shed that. What does everybody else think? Worry. The connection that makes converts. And one thing I kind of want to bring it back around to is I talk a lot about connect to convert, and with you and for people listening, you're still not exactly sure what conversion looks like per se. If we were to write it down, a lot of times it's dollars, right? It's a bottom line. However, you're still going. You're extremely strategic, smart woman. You find there must be equity here, and you must be measuring up that this is worth your time. So tell me a little bit about that and what that's like for you, being so intentional about every step usually, and knowing that this is building, yet you're not exactly sure where it's going. However, clearly there's some purpose in it.
Yeah. I mean, my private practice here in the Midwest, like me posting on Instagram isn't driving patients to my office. I feel like I'm doing the right thing though, because I have had patients of mine say, I love your page. It's inspiring to me. And that's awesome. Or like, I laughed my butt off. At your last TikTok or whatever. And I thought I could hide, but when TikTok got as big as it did, I had a bunch of patients be like, that was you. I was like, my fertility doctor's on TikTok. I'm like, yeah, I know. That's
She's famous. She's an influencer. That's even doctor/influencer.
But no, I'm not, I don't have like a measurable product. But for me, like I was saying before, I mean, I think when I started doing this, it was coming out of more of an unmeasurable thing of just wanting to change lives, to impact change, which is a hard to measure thing. But when I start getting messages from people and inspiring, and this is how, then I'm doing that. And for me, that's the value that I'm getting out of it right now.
And I appreciate you sharing and being honest that your roadmap is, you have some things to fill out still in terms of that vision, but you have only so many hours in a day. You have a family, you have a full schedule, yet you're still finding it's worth your time and ROI to do this purpose, of course, but you also know this is, I'm not going to speak for you, but the doors that this opens just from an awareness standpoint, and for you to be able to share your thought leadership it's appreciated on my part, because I think you're bringing things to the surface that culturally we need tap at the surface in the places that matter. And you know what? TikTok is a prime place. So I appreciate your consistency and your willingness to continue to create this content. And also the fact that you're trusting the process, because there's a bridge between today and wherever this is going. And you don't always know.
No, you don't. And I don't know where I'm exactly going with all of this. In the same way that I didn't know where I was going with when I went to Cambridge and did a PhD, but it opened doors. It taught me things that I didn't know about the world. And I feel like social media is doing that for me now. It's opening doors. I've met a whole community of other fertility physicians, of other physicians in different specialties, and made connections there that I didn't have before. And if nothing else, it's worth it for that, because, medicine can be kind of an isolating field. It's awesome to have a community, whether virtual or real, but pretty much all of our communities are virtual right now. So
exactly. Heck yeah. That's a huge upside as well. And changing gears here, what's one thing that you do in your day just to make sure you get the most out of your day? So whether it's a productivity tip or just something that kind of sticks with you, because clearly, did you say 36 years of education? Like, you know how to manage your time. So what's your biggest tip?
I love like the setting timers for a few minutes to get as much as you can done. But no, I actually think that my biggest one is trying to live in the time that you're getting that you're working. I mean, you're going to have pushes with work. You're going to have pushes with your personal life, but you can't completely negate one for the other. You have to find a way to do your life while you're doing your passion. I think that's my biggest one. I mean, in that 11 years of medical, through 4 years of medical school, 4 years of OBGYN residency, 3 years of fellowship in fertility, I got married. I had 2 children.
Things didn't stop, right?
Changed decades of my life. You can't just give up an entire decade for medicine. You have to do those other things that are important to you personally, in your heart. So I think my biggest recommendation is just like, don't forget to live your life while you're following your passion.
Amazing. And you don't have to, they both can exist, right? They can coexist. It's not.
They can. Yeah. It won't be easy, but they can, and I think as a fertility doctor, I'm in that space. I'm in that space of trying to help women do both.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. And we talk a lot about brand essence within the things that I teach and with our Renegade students. And I don't know if you remember exactly where you landed or if it's top of mind, but I remember when you said, in a way, it was kind of a conversation. You do deliver dreams, right? Mm-hmm. So help people or make dreams come true. Do you remember how you worded that? I can't remember.
Yeah. I mean, I remember I help women do hard things, and I'm kind of a dream maker or something like that,
Dream maker. That's what it was, because who else? There aren't too many, professions where you can actually legitimately, but it's true. It's coming from a place of why and who. Mm-hmm. And that happens to be what you do too. But clearly everything we've heard about you has led to that. What's one thing, Meredith, you find yourself learning over and over again?
Probably not to take things so personally. I'm pretty sensitive. I have to, as tough as I am on the outside, I'm a pretty sensitive person.
Really? That's, yeah. No, that's good to hear though. Like, has there been anything lately where you were just like, oh, that got me. And then later you're like, yeah, maybe I was being a little sensitive.
Oh, like patient reviews. Oh, it just kills me. Oh, it hurts so bad. They can just get me so badly. I'm way sensitive to that kind of stuff.
Because you're human. And that's like what we've been talking about. Heaven forbid. As I think about just your journey, and if you were to say to the DM, the person, first of all, what age do you think the majority and average person, young female, is that's DMing you saying, "Oh, I didn't realize I could do that. I was told I couldn't," in terms of being a mom and being an athlete and being a physician and being well-rounded?
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was going to be like 28, 30, because that's when I was thinking about those things. They're like 14-year-olds, 16-year-olds. These are high schoolers.
Oh, so if you could just give them a little insight right now, what would you say to them?
That no one else can determine what you can work for. I mean, no one gets to decide where you spend your effort and your time and your passion. And they can tell you about requirements for things. They can tell you about the grades that you need to get for something, or, how few people get a position, but they can't determine how hard you're going to work for it.
I wish I had heard that too at that age. Now that I think about it, it's so true. We think our power is not necessarily ours, but
I think that's what
right.
sports taught me. You asked me at the beginning, like, what did I learn from sports? And I think that's what just growing up as an athlete taught me, was like, if you want it, you work for it. If you whether you make the team is up to you. You just have to go for it and work hard. But you're never, it all comes down to passion. If it's not what you're passionate about, the amount of work you're going to need to do something. If you are not passionate about it, the amount of work you need to do to succeed in that is not going to happen.
As someone who has been through her own fertility challenges and having a few miscarriages and witnessed friends, having their own experiences, as well as just even topical and timely, you look at, the world of celebrity and social and what's being shared with experiences. There are so many facets to this conversation, and you know all of them. And you see the news, you see what's happening even politically. What are some of the things that you just want people to know or realize or consider? I mean, you're at this epicenter among all of this.
I think it's just that female reproduction, reproduction in general is important. It's part of what makes us human and keeps us going as a species, but that in and of itself makes it important. So much has changed in fertility in the 15 years that I've been kind of from the outside moving into the epicenter of practice, in how much we talk about reproduction. It has changed dramatically. 10, 15 years ago, people were quiet about the fact that they'd ever had IVF. These days women are on reality shows talking about their egg freezing. And like Chrissy Teigen recently was very powerfully open about her second trimester pregnancy loss. I think these things are important because I think as much as we as women hide in the shadows, as much as we keep it quiet, the more we're having other women feel like they're going through this alone too. That's as a fertility doctor, when we have pregnancy loss, it's universally feeling like they're alone. Like no one's ever done this, but like this has never happened to anybody else but me. Mm-hmm. And being on the other side of it, I would be like, oh no, you are so not alone. You don't want to be in this club, but you are so not alone. I think there's real power in talking about those things and advocating for things on the forefront of human reproduction. I politically, I'm on the side of people very much with wanted pregnancies, but things happen. It's important that that's part of the discussions that we have, when we're making laws, when we're advocating for things, because reproduction affects women's ability to work in the workplace too. And our ability to manage that and to be able to have children or freeze eggs for the future or all those things, it impacts how we can contribute to society. And it's important, for all those reasons.
And what do you, as someone who is on the ground floor, like you're on the forefront of the innovation, but also the conversation and witnessing the volume, and what are some of the things that you think So sharing and being more open about experiences, it sounds like. Are there any other things that we can be doing to encourage and help this conversation and the innovation continue, as listeners, as people going through it?
I think that there needs to be, and you see it happening in some corporations. It needs to be a culture shift around reproduction, around taking time to get pregnant, to be pregnant, to raise a baby. That needs to change as a society. We need to take more responsibility for both men and women in raising our families as Americans. And I think it's just being aware that women having children and being able to be in the workplace is important, and working towards social change that allows that to happen. It's the best thing for the future. It's the best thing for everybody.
It's so timely, right? Especially the big research study that just came out with women in the workplace as well. And knowing personally, as very focused on my career, I kept kind of thinking, I've got time. And I kind of heard this narrative, whether it were people in my life or just media or whoever else. Oh, you've got plenty of time. And then I started to reach that 40 threshold and I was like, oh shit, a couple of miscarriages. And I was like, wait, maybe this isn't the truth. Maybe I've been listening to something that I shouldn't have been listening to. And I felt stupid too for not being more proactive about my very, very own research. And the statistics, it's not that difficult, but I thought about freezing my eggs and went through all that whole process. But I think that's such a good point because we want people to feel okay and be like, oh, you've got time. Oh, you're going to be fine. Keep going. And then I was like, wait, that may not be the truth. And that's one percentage of the conversation. But I know it's circulating and how powerful it is to be able to listen to your peers and hear their stories.
I think that's where social media becomes, has so much impact is that we're able to reach women that weren't looking for that information, but we're able to start giving that information to women at younger ages so that they're equipped with that. Because you're right, no one ever educated any of us with that. I don't think you missed anything. It wasn't there. That information wasn't there for your easy consumption.
Right.
About what happens with age. I, as a 30-year-old, I turned 30 my intern year of OBGYN residency, and I can still remember sitting through it was so hard to hear. It was hard to look at these really sad graphs of egg yield just nosediving in the late 30s. But in retrospect, I consider it a complete privilege that I was able to have that information at 30. In retrospect, it helped shape me to make the decision to try to have children at really maybe not the easiest times in my life. Incredibly inconvenient times. Yes, love my children very much, but I had that information so that I could make an informed decision about my own reproduction. And part of me wants all women to have that information so that every woman has the ability now. And some women have that information and they still can't conceive. And so there is a real disease part of infertility that we don't want to, assume is social by any means, but it's part of that whole discussion. It's part of making those decisions about reproduction that affect the workplace and that affect our ability to, follow our passion.
Exactly. And it kind of goes back to what you were talking about earlier and doubling down on just being real. Because I know in the media, I would see, well, Janet Jackson's having, twins at 50. So I'm not good, right? I've got another decade to figure this out. And yeah, that's okay for Us Weekly or whatever I happen to see that on, BuzzFeed or something. But the truth is that's not necessarily the reality. And so what media traditionally might be telling us might counteract that. The real world stories of social. And I remember you telling a story. If it sparks a memory, I'd love for you to share. If not, no worries. But you were going through TSA. We had similar TSA stories, but
yeah.
There was a moment, right? It was one of your go-to stories.
Yeah. I mean, it was when these high schoolers said that they had been told that they couldn't have a career and be a parent or be a doctor and be a parent, it floored me because quite frankly, I grew up as the girl who thought I could do it. I mean, I joined the men's boxing team at Cambridge. I was that girl. I was like, I can do anything boys can do. Watch me. And then there I was, in the TSA line being stopped for breast milk searches, trying to get on a plane to get to my fellowship interview as I was a resident and had a 6-month-old baby at home. And I'm standing there in tears being like, this is not the same. This is not the same being a woman, having a baby in the middle of OBGYN residency, going back to work at 3.5 weeks postpartum, maybe 4 weeks postpartum, traveling at 6 months with a cooler full of breast milk through TSA. I mean, that was my reality, and it wasn't my husband's reality, but he got to have a kid too. And you realize that biology is different. And I see it with IVF. I mean, the amount of physical work that my female patients have to go through for pregnancy is very different from what the male patients have to go through for conception. It's different. So there's a time when you just can't, you try to help with the biology, but you can't change that.
But you can change the awareness and sharing those stories, because I guarantee people listening right now, it's like, oh yeah, I guess that makes sense. They're kind of tracking that story you just told. And it's like, all of a sudden that actually does start to make an impact over time. So that matters, right? It's huge.
I've been privileged to be part of women's lives at so many stages, from experiencing loss and trying again, to going through hell trying to get pregnant, to going through labor. I have had the privilege of being part of so many situations where women have realized that they are so much stronger. I've witnessed female strength that is just beyond imaginable. And so I think that there's a bit of a place where you go, yeah, I've been stopped at TSA where, or been, showed up after work at a Halloween party where they hope there's not a black light because they'll realize that there's breast milk all over my clothes.
Gosh.
And those are just reality, but you realize like you can do it. And if I can do it, you can do it, because I'm not special. You just go, you just do what you can do.
Cute.
And you show up. You just be a mom. I mean, that's the essence of it. That's the essence of it. It's messy. It's not perfect. It's not clean, but you just show up every day.
Just keep showing up.
Yeah.
Mm. And I thank you for this time and sharing your wisdom and time more than anything. If you could go back to the young girl who's trying to decide whether or not she wanted to give back that $30,000 that was already in the bank and give her a little advice, what would you say to her?
Do it and don't look back. You just have to make decisions and go. Follow your heart, I think, is the biggest thing.
Love it. Oh, thank you, Meredith. This has been a treat for me to get to ask you some questions. I learned some things for sure that I'm like, wait a minute, we've never talked about that. And just the important work you're doing, because, we've all got full lives, and you're still choosing to share and educate and entertain too. By the way, it's edutainment. If you follow Meredith, we'll make sure we include her links in the notes section. And by the way, just in case someone doesn't click on TikTok, your profile is
Meredith Provost, MD.
Provost, MD. Okay. And so thank you for continuing to do this and just, I don't know, being with us today. This has been awesome.
Amy Jo, it's been amazing. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening to the show. Hit me up on social media to let me know what you think. I'm at Amy Jo Martin on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And I want to hear your Why Not Now moments so I can share them on the show. Just send me a note to whynotnow@amyjomartin.com. For show notes and other offers, you can visit amyjomartin.com/whynotnow. And while you're there, don't forget to sign up for my email newsletter for exclusive content and announcements. A big thanks to Rock Salt Music for all of the tunes by the talented John Coggins. And of course, a hat tip to Richard Brewer for editing and producing the show. I'll see you next time. And until then, why not now?